Live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the Techstars Startup Week Dayton. You are in the materials and manufacturing track, which will be running all day. We would like to thank our title sponsors for this event, the Entrepreneur Center, Wright State Applied Research Corporation, Fifth Third Bank. We would also like to thank our track captains that organized this track today, Eric Wagner and Kayla Miller from Converge Technologies. And throughout the day, you'll be able to ask questions of our panelists in the app. So if you go over in your app to the session Q&A and select manufacturing track, if you submit those questions there, our moderators will see them throughout the day. And with that, I will send it over to Eric Wagner to take over. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, John. So good morning, everyone. This session, the 9 a.m. session, is broken into 3 speakers. We will start with our keynote speaker, which is Glenn Richardson. Glenn is the Managing Director of the Advanced Manufacturing at JobsOhio. Glenn works with advanced manufacturing and aerospace companies to help them grow in an Industry 4.0 world. Glenn is experienced in operations and engineering, having worked in the aerospace, automotive, and energy industries. Prior to JobsOhio, he worked for Rolls-Royce Energy Systems, Inc. as Vice President of the Packaging and Driven Equipment Supply Chain Unit. Glenn has also held positions with Dana Corporation and Honeywell, where he led the technical development of the fuel valves for the jet engine of the F-22 fighter. Glenn earned his executive MBA and a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Notre Dame and a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Purdue University. Glenn, thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Eric, for that nice introduction, and good morning to everyone. I would like to thank Techstars for putting on this event, and thank you to all the local sponsors for your support. We know how important this event is in helping to foster entrepreneurship, as it's been well documented that the majority of new job creation comes from startup companies. No surprise to this audience, I'm sure. And what better place than Dayton, Ohio for this event? The birthplace of aviation, the cash register, the pop-top can, and many other innovations too numerous to mention. It is my pleasure to speak with you this morning. As introduced, I'm the Managing Director of Advanced Manufacturing and Aerospace for JobsOhio. JobsOhio is the private nonprofit organization responsible for economic development in the state of Ohio. Our mission is to drive new capital investment and job creation in Ohio through business attraction and expansion. Since our inception, we've been mostly focused on mature companies. But as we mature, see, we are a startup as well. We were created and codified in law in 2011 and received our financing in 2013. So we're really in the 7th year of our existence. But as we mature, we're expanding our support to include scale-ups and also innovation districts that on a limited scale will involve startups. We go to market independently, but also leverage our 6 regional partners that have significant capabilities and experience in economic development. And there is none more capable than our partner here in the Dayton region, the Dayton Development Coalition. I'd like to give a shout out to them. These are unprecedented times in the world due to COVID-19. Certainly, we'd all prefer to be together rather than virtual. And I can attest to that. This is quite a different experience than being able to see your faces and talk to you directly. I hope I'm coming across all right. But thank goodness for technology, otherwise we wouldn't be able to do this. Ohio manufacturing has clearly been impacted by the pandemic, but where there is a will, there is a way. The pandemic brought with it a shortage of PPE, and Ohio companies responded. Stories abound concerning businesses pivoting to produce face shields, masks, gowns, hand sanitizer, ventilators, and other equipment to help out medical providers and first responders. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention, and I can personally attest that entrepreneurship is alive and well in Ohio. When thinking about my message for today, the word hope came to mind. Just as technology is making it possible to work from home and conduct business during this pandemic, You bring us hope that there is a better future ahead with the inventions and business innovations that you are all pursuing. You bring us hope for a better future. But to be successful, you'll need support, both from an advisory as well as a financial perspective. You'll need a supportive entrepreneurial ecosystem. You'll need a capable supply chain, and you'll need talent to bring your ideas to life. I'm proud to say that you'll find all of that here in Ohio. While you bring us hope, we are working to help ensure your success in Ohio. The PPE shortage exposed a supply chain vulnerability not previously contemplated. 90+% of all PPE today comes from China. And disruptions to this supply chain due to demand shocks like we had with COVID put this country in jeopardy. Having now experienced the impacts and the safety risks that came with the PPE shortage, there's general concern for other strategic commodities and products that need to be manufactured in the United States for our national security. This is a concern for our federal government, but also for Ohio. As the third largest manufacturing state in the nation by output, GSP, Ohio has an opportunity and a responsibility in this regard. Governor DeWine has set a vision for Ohio to lead the way out of the current recession, and JobsOhio is strategically positioned due to our unique funding model to double down on our key initiatives and accelerate our recovery. If you didn't know, JobsOhio generates its operating revenue by operating the state-controlled liquor business. We oversee this business. We have modernized this business. We're responsible for ensuring that the product that you want is on the shelves when you want it. We have a 25-year franchise on that business. And the nice thing about this model is that liquor sales are very resilient. And so while other states are struggling due to reduced tax receipts because of COVID, our revenue remains strong. So we are in a great position to make a big impact here in the next couple of years. In the years following the 2008 recession, Ohio lagged the U.S. in employment by a few percentage points, almost the entire 8 to 10 years of recovery. It's just the opposite with the beginning of this recovery. Ohio has led the way, and while U.S. employment caught up to Ohio in August, we intend to increase that gap going forward. In response to this challenge, JobsOhio has prioritized 3 initiatives in the short term and more to come in the long term. The 3 initiatives are reshoring, innovation, and talent. With regard to reshoring, we are evaluating the opportunity for Ohio to be a global leader in the innovation, production, and distribution of PPE, personal protective equipment. 68 companies received grant awards totaling $20 million from the state of Ohio for PPE equipment investment. And JobsOhio has another 24 additional projects in our pipeline today. We'll be making a decision soon on how much money to allocate to this initiative, but I assure you we are aggressively pursuing opportunities in the interim. We are also looking at other supply chains associated with our strategic sectors for additional opportunities. Our goal is open and resilient supply chains that support our key manufacturing sectors. As for innovation, we continue to focus on 2 core manufacturing trends: additive manufacturing and Industry 4.0. Our vision is to establish Ohio as the center of excellence in additive manufacturing, leveraging the substantial assets that we have in Ohio, including America Makes, ASTM International, the United States Air Force Research Labs, NASA Glenn Research Center, and a host of universities and companies in this space. We plan to lead in innovation in materials and machine manufacturing, in service providers, and in company adoption. The Ohio Additive Cluster is very active in the Northeast with over 150 companies engaged, and we are currently funding an asset mapping project to support our goal of expanding the cluster statewide. We want people and businesses to know that if they want to do 3D printing, they need to be in Ohio. We also have an IIoT, or Industry 4.0 cluster in the Northeast, and that has developed an industry-leading maturity assessment tool and is developing a library of use cases to help companies understand how to move up the maturity scale. With over 14,000 manufacturing companies in the state, this is an important strategic initiative. It's a defensive move to help companies maintain their global competitiveness and an offensive play to help them win more market share. No better time to invest than when the market is down, so that you can take advantage of the inherent cost, quality, and delivery improvements that come with these advanced digital tools and systems. The third pillar of our strategy is to focus on talent. This includes upskilling of both displaced and incumbent workers. The new program is called Ohio to Work, and it's a collaboration between JobsOhio, the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, the Ohio Development Services Agency, and the Office of Workforce Transformation, as well as Ohio businesses. It is being piloted in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and with the plan to roll it out across the state. The program offers career counseling and skills assessment and customized training aligned with committed available jobs. This will be a game changer for Ohio as it's focused on Industry 4.0 skills as well as IT skills. I'm very excited about this program. We intend to help our manufacturing companies bridge the digital divide by leading with a skilled workforce. This will allow us to be competitive with any supply chain in the world. It will allow us the flexibility to reshore the products needed to ensure national security, to shorten supply chains to meet ever-demanding consumer behaviors, and to allow us to develop and innovate new products to ensure that we stay at the top of the manufacturing ladder. But before I conclude my remarks, I just wanted to share with you some of the sectors that are really doing well in this time of COVID, and there are quite a few. Material handling sector is doing very well due to increased demand for e-commerce. Packaging, both plastic for food and corrugated, again, for e-commerce. Building materials, doing very well due to new home starts, as well as increased demand due to all of us working from home and thinking of new DIY projects to get done in the interim. And also electrification. The electrification of power tools, power equipment, automobiles, and even aircraft. This trend is driving investment in battery technology, advanced power and thermal controls, advanced materials, especially reinforced fiber composites, electric motors, and autonomous systems. One of the key areas that we're very excited about in autonomous systems is this idea of flying cars, flying orbs. The United States at the federal level has recognized that too much technology has gone overseas. And so they have created a program called Agility Prime. And one of its first focuses is on advanced urban air mobility. The goal here is to ensure that this disruptive transportation trend and the technologies associated with it are developed here in the United States and stay here in the United States. We're fortunate that we've been working on unmanned aerial systems for many years with ODOT under the Fly Ohio umbrella, coordinated with the Air Force Research Labs developing SkyVision, a radar system to help with the control of unmanned vehicles in the national airspace. And now with Agility Prime being managed right out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the center of Dayton, we are also blessed with this proximity and close working relationship. So I look forward to this exciting trend to continue both on the ground and in the air, and to see the contribution that Ohio will be making to this as we move forward. Given that Ohio is number 2 producer of light vehicles, the number 1 supplier state to Airbus and Boeing, and the number 1 producer of glass and rubber parts, we have the opportunity to take advantage of these trends and influence the direction of these exciting technologies and products, and at the same time develop a more diverse and resilient economy. I believe we are entering a very exciting time in manufacturing here in Ohio, and I hope that all of you will continue to leverage the resources we have, like Ohio Third Frontier, the Entrepreneurs Center, the Dayton Development Coalition, JobsOhio, and many others to help ensure that you are successful and able to contribute to the bright future of Ohio manufacturing. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great week.
Glenn, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you, Eric.
It was an honor to have you here. We're going to move to our next speaker, Kim Frazier. And so, Kim,
That's cool.
It was pretty good for our space.
Yeah, that's good.
Wendy, are you in at all, or you work from home?
So I've been working from home almost completely, but I think I'm going to start going in probably a few times a week. It helps me to stay a little grounded, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So I'm not sure. Sorry about the audio break there. I'm not sure where we dropped off. If one of you guys.
At all, or you work from home?
So I've been working from home almost completely, but I think I'm going to start going in probably. All right. So I'm not sure where we were on.
Kim, I would start with ESP. I think that's about where you left off.
Sorry. Great. All right. So the ESP program is the Ohio Third Frontier program for the Dayton region. The ESP is the Entrepreneurial Service Provider program, and it focuses on tech-based companies. So within specific industries, definitely materials and manufacturing is one of those industries. It's an important part of our ESP portfolio. To be part of the ESP program, you have to have some type of IP, some type of patent or trade secret that is also scalable. So something that can be made into something bigger. So the ESP program offers for companies who compete to get into the ESP program. It is a competitive process, and we have the companies pitch to us and show us what they've got, what they need, and what their expected sales or jobs or investments are going to be. So it's a hard program to get into, but it's a great service. We offer third-party services, so we pay for maybe an IP attorney, a financial services, marketing, website development. We pay for prototypes. We work with Eric's organization, which I'm sure he'll share. We work with Eric's organization on prototype development. And we have an angel investor network that we can put you in front of. We have lots of capital, ways to get capital. We work with you on SBIR projects, whatever it might be. We can do all of that through our ESP program. And then the third program that we have at the Entrepreneur Center is probably the best and most inclusive one, which is the Small Business Development Center. And the Small Business Development Center for any manufacturer that is a small business, which I believe the definition is under 500 people, so it's not really that small, but 500 employees, I should say. But the Small Business Development Center offers all sorts of support. Business plans, they can help you with financing, they can help you with any kind of business strategy. We had one company that reached out to me a few months ago. It was a contract manufacturer in Dayton, an entrepreneur who had started his own contract manufacturing company 20 plus years ago, I believe. And because of the nature of the manufacturing industry, his business was changing. He wasn't sure how to keep up. He was having a hard time. The service that he provided was more commonly brought in-house into bigger companies. And so the contract possibilities weren't there as strongly as they used to be. And so he was struggling with what he was going to do to survive. And I connected him to one of our Small Business Development Center business advisors who is very good at manufacturing. Most of his clients are in the manufacturing portfolio. And so he has been working with him to help him make that pivot. So it's things like that too, not just business plans and finance and that side, but actual strategy of what to do for your manufacturing firm. So those are really the three areas: AFRL, ESP, Small Business Development Center, that we can offer to anybody who's either doing a startup in manufacturing or is a current entrepreneur that is struggling or needs help or needs any kind of guidance within the manufacturing industry. So thank you. And I'll be happy to answer questions when Eric is ready to go there.
Thanks so much, Kim. We'll leave Q&A open to the end of the And so I'm going to ask John or Ashley if they can see that.
Not yet.
Not yet. So let's make sure that we do this again. And how about now?
You're good now.
Thank you. And so again, I thought we'd talk about a little bit today is efficient product development. And we'll keep this relatively short and sweet, but certainly try to give you an of what our methodology is for doing this. So I always, when I talk to a new startup or a company that's looking to bring a product into the marketplace, I always ask the question, does somebody want it? And how bad do they want it? So, we always kind of lead with don't build what no one wants, right? And the easiest way to define this is to ask two questions. Define a customer defined need and value proposition, and then also product design and manufacture to meet the customer's needs. So if those two can converge together, you end up with a very, very happy customer. We view the products or technologies that have the highest probability of success is when you deliver a product which meets a need and has a value, and then as importantly is able to be manufactured value of that with margin, right? So we can be a profitable business while meeting the needs of our customers. And so I always say, seriously, don't build what no one wants, right? The top 20 reasons why startup fell, according to CB Insights, are listed here, right? This is based on 101 post-mortems from startups, companies that failed. As you see, the biggest one, no market need. Certainly in the top 5, getting out competed, pricing, poor product. All of these things that I have marked here with X's can actually be mitigated by doing this customer value proposition and efficient design and manufacturing, right? When we go down through this top 20 list, everything here, if you have a good customer interaction and good value proposition, guidance from the customer, and then are also able to design to that value proposition in a very efficient manner, you can overcome at least 11 of these 20 shortcomings. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with what the is. This is built by Steve Blank out of Stanford. He built a whole methodology around it over the last decade. It's utilized everywhere. We teach an accelerator program here in the fall at Wright State called From the Kaufman Foundation, but it leans very, very heavily on this idea of lean business model canvas. But really, it's a concept that you put everything on paper and you really do your homework in advance to launching your startup. And in materials and manufacturing, where your costs are so high for actually bringing that product in the marketplace, this is kind of a critical step, right? A business plan, as Steve said, it's a document investors make you write, so you don't read it, right? So don't spend a whole bunch of time developing this, very astute, very robust business plan without actually doing a little bit of homework to determine if there's value there. And so when you look at lean business model canvas, it's driven by the customer. It focuses on the identification of value. It minimizes your investment of time and money, right? So you're spending more time listening to the customer than you're doing almost anything else. It's been proven to be successful. We follow this methodology for every startup that we do. You build the entire thing on paper before you actually, enact anything, before you actually start prototyping or going into production. So the two areas that we really focus on the lean business model canvas, especially for early stage startups, are how value propositions and customer segments are interrelated, right? We really want to define who your beachhead customers are, and then drive towards the ones that have the highest value proposition. So maybe within the medical space, clinics versus hospitals, or the customer segments who derive the highest value propositions from you. These are things that we want to have kind of spelled out, with engaged customers who actually have some value that they can derive from your product in the mix early on. This is even before when Kim talked about intellectual property. This is when you have an intellectual property, develop a product around that intellectual property. So something that they can have a hand in helping develop. The value proposition, definition of it, as far as we outline it, it describes the specific benefits that your customer will derive from adopting your product or services and their willingness to pay for them, right? The willingness to pay for them is the critical aspect here. That's where you drive the value. When they cut a check out for your product or service, that's how valuable it is, right? And value is only as much as somebody is willing to pay. So here's some value proposition questions that we'll typically ask. These are things that if you engage with a customer, they will give you feedback. They want a solution that increases their value proposition. So if you can find really good customers who are engaged before you go into the market with your product or services, it's a really, really big benefit for your company. And so we ask, can you produce savings? These are in terms of time, money, or effort, right? Can you make your customer feel better? This could be by doing things like killing the frustrations associated with, customer engagement, annoyances, or other customers' headaches. So these are alleviating the pains of running a business. Can they fix underperforming solutions by introducing maybe new features, better performance, or enhanced quality? We put an end to difficult challenges your customers encounter, maybe by making it easier, eliminating obstacles, reducing the hurdles to entry to your customer segmentation, for example. Can you eliminate risk for your customers? These might be financial terms, social, technical risks, or other things that potentially go wrong with their business. Almost as importantly, can you help your customer better at night? So we always talk about, you want to find that purchasing manager who is staying up all night because he has these problems, right? And by overcoming them, he can sleep better at night. Can you limit or eradicate common mistakes customers make, right? By helping them use the solution in a more efficient or the right way. So after you've engaged with your customer and you have a really good sense of what it is that they're after and what the value proposition is around it, now that you know what it is, how do you build it, right? And to us, we look at kind of three major things to do that. We look at form, we look at fit, and we look at function. So, form is the physical characteristics of the product. It includes things like the shape, the weight, the color, the material. This is the user experience. How does it fit in my hand? How do I use it, right? The fit, although it should sound like how does it fit in my hand, it's not. It's really for does it fit the intended application? Can it be used as intended to do? Do all the components seamlessly interact? If it's a part of an enterprise system or a component within a larger integrated system, does it do what it's supposed to do within that system, right? And then function, the function, does it meet the customer's application and expectations? Does it really meet the operational specifications that customer needs to overcome those value propositions? This is the end product, right? The technical specifications, if you want to call them, on the back of the box. This is what the function is. So I always tell everybody that we should really focus on, keeping it simple, right? We want to deliver the value proposition to the customer without over-engineering something. This is a Rube Goldberg. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. It's a very, very complex system to do a very, very simple thing. And in this case, they have the entire boot kicking the football to end up with the birding the worm and pulling the letter out and putting it in the mailbox, right? And at the end of the day, that's effectively what we don't want to do. We want to make this is the most simple, most elegant solution to address your customer's value proposition is what you're shooting for here. And so then the final fourth, the fourth F, we always talk about form, fit, and function. A lot of people don't talk about that fourth F, and to us, that's the feasibility. Is it feasible to deliver this form, fit, function to a customer with enough margin to maintain profitability? You end up with always, when you're developing a new product, you end up with an initial loss cycle where you're doing your product development and starting to scale into manufacturing. And then when you manufacture, you get a certain amount of sales, you hit a break-even point, and you push into profit. The feasibility aspect of a product is often overlooked, right? I mean, you think, oh, if we build it, they'll come. The customers have told us they want it. But there's always that tipping point for value proposition for when it becomes too expensive and it no longer is feasible for them within their budgets, within their business cycle, whatever it might be, where feasibility becomes kind of the critical driver. The most important question to be answered is in design and manufacturing. So when we're talking about how to lower the break-even point or the cost per unit here. We talk a lot about design and manufacturing, so we want to design a system that's easily manufactured. This is all margin driven, and it usually scales with volume and demand, right? The more I produce, usually the unit price comes down. So keep it simple, soup it. That's what we always learned when we were kids. KISS, right, in engineering. You want to deliver the value proposition as efficiently as possible. And to do that, we look at what design for manufacturability, DFM. It's a general engineering practice of designing products in such a way that they're easy to manufacture. So when you're thinking about all the features that you're developing to deliver this value proposition to your customers, you really want to think about how you're going to design those to be manufacturable. DFM guidelines, the guidelines help to precisely define the variance tolerances, rules, and common manufacturing practices. This is how you'll play within an ecosystem. This is how you'll pass your certification for FCC or the FDA approval process, whatever it might be. But it is the #1 driver of cost reduction in new product development. So here we have a kind of an 8-phase process flow from concept to product. A lot of the startups that we're looking at right now are concept and project initiation. So you do your preliminary design, your prototyping design. This whole first side is all preliminary, right? It doesn't until you start getting type construction, pre-production, pilot production, and then production that you end up actually having to invest a lot of dollars into capital equipment or outside contract manufacturing. So we really kind of encourage a lot of the companies we work with to focus a lot on this early stage so that then the execution in the secondary phases is a lot easier. So we pulled the 10 key tenets, and I wanted to include these because not a lot of people, know the tenets of design for manufacturing, and really thought I would share them with the group just because a lot of it's common sense, but it's things that a lot of people don't think about, especially when they're bringing new products in the market. So minimize the number of components. Assembly costs are then reduced. The final product is more reliable because there are fewer connections between things. Disassembly for maintenance and field service is easier. Reduced part count usually means automation is easier to implement. So when you're actually putting something together in an automated fashion on a manufacturing line, it's a little bit easier to actually develop. Work in process is reduced. So there's fewer inventory control problems. Supply chain is not nearly as big. The second tenet, again, these are kind of in orders of priority too. The #1 one is minimize the number of components. #2, use standard commercially available components. The more you customize and the more you use these one-offs or high specialty commercial components, you end up with 2 risks. You end up with the risk of your supply chain going away, #1, but you also end up with the risk of that part or that particular piece of your product becoming obsolete if that supplier goes away, right? So you want to use standard commercially available components. Design time and effort are reduced when you do that. Design and custom engineering components is voided, and that's a big deal. Fewer part numbers, so that goes back to minimizing the number of components. Your inventory control is facilitated. Quantity discounts may be possible. We found that when you're buying, for example, electronic components, once you hit that 500 unit threshold, the price comes down exponentially, usually by about half. Use common parts. So #3, use common parts across product lines. Here, there's an opportunity to buy group technology, right? Implementation of manufacturing cells then are possible. So you have 2 different product lines, the same common line for a certain amount of time, and then splitting off into certain cells for customization. And again, here we see quantity discounts being possible. #4, we say design for ease of part fabrication. So this is the physical part of the process. If you can end up with a net shape or near shape process, that's obviously the best and hopefully the most feasible. That's where you're just bending a piece of metal versus cutting it in 7 different sections and welding it together, right? Part geometry is simplified. You have nice smooth features like you do on the iPhone. It's not only designed for use, but it's designed for ease of fabrication. Unnecessarily surface finish requirements should be avoided. So if you can end up with something that start with something that's already finished, you obviously want to do that. And then end up with additional processing. So #5, design parts with tolerances that are within process capability. Again, the under the tolerances. So when you look at something that requires very, very high precision, it ends up with very, very high cost. So if you can design and develop your product so that it has tolerances which are able to be met in your manufacturing processes, that's always a way to be much more efficient in your design and manufacturing process. Number 6, design to be foolproof during assembly. Q&A becomes one of the biggest issues associated with your product launches. You want to make sure that your customers are happy. If you design it to be foolproof during assembly, then typically the product comes out with a much higher quality assurance score. Assembly should be unambiguous. Parts should be designed so that they can only be assembled in one way. You can't put a printed circuit board. You can't put the components in backwards, for example, right? Special geometric features must be added to components to achieve foolproof assembly. And again, this is a process-driven, very methodical process where you ensure that the components can be put in only one way, right? So if you have an assembly tech, they can only assemble the product in that right way. Minimize the use of flexible components. So again, this goes back to the concept of having model components. If you use flexible components, then these will, parts of rubber, belts, gaskets, whatever they may be, when they flex a lot, they tend to wear and tear, which then leads you to have to service that particular piece of component, more frequently, right? Design assembly, again, part features should be designed, made it with their parts. Number 9, use modular design. Again, the idea that you can have an integrated system or system of systems that can be put together in a very modular design helps increase your ability to manufacture. You make these small modular pieces on one line, put them together in an assembly cell, and then shape parts and products for ease of packaging. This is something a lot of people don't think about, but should be thinking about right from the very beginning. Is how are you going to get your service offerings to your customers? For products, you want to make sure that you actually have an ease of packaging that can be shipped, via UPS or whatever it might be. So this slide is our current customer engagement model. I put this in because I want everybody to know that we don't just say all these things. We actually do all these things. Our customer engagement model is very customer driven. We focus on those value challenges right out of the gate. So you can go to our website and see this. Again, this is what we follow. This isn't what just what you practice what you preach, as they say, right? We start with that value challenge. We end up with the problem definition. This is where we do really good, deep value proposition analysis, right? Based off that, we build a team. Then we build the program definition. And so all this is, the whole way down through here. It's not until you actually get to the program execution that we actually do anything with those customers. But once we do get to that program execution, we follow the design for manufacturability process to run a phase-gated program that has milestone-based, success-based milestones, right? So, we not only do this, we do a lot of this legwork to determine what the value proposition is, what value we're going to try to deliver to that customer before we even start. But when we do start, we follow that very, kind of rigorous process. Now, if you want to learn more about all this, and this is my pitch since I have the floor, we do run a free, thanks to Wright State Research Center, Applied Research Center. We run a tech-focused accelerator. The next one is scheduled for October. We may be moving it to November based on availability, but you can sign up here. This is a 10-week class. It's free, as I mentioned, thanks to Wright State and Launch Dayton. But we have a number of really good speakers come in and talk about how to bring new products into the marketplace, especially within manufacturing and materials. Program applications are here, and I think that there's a link somewhere on the site here as well. So with that, I think we are close to our session time, and I'm going to ask John, stop sharing here, and ask John to close us up, if he's still on. Oh, we lost John. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and thank our two speakers, Glenn and Kim, for joining us today. We're going to be moving on to a roundtable session. So I believe that's a separate link. And I wish you all guys all the best in your manufacturing and materials startup week. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. And it looks like we have no questions, so I'm going to go ahead and close this session out. Again, thank you guys for joining us, and I hope the rest of your startup week is great. Thanks, Glenn and Kim.